Welcome to the Transfer Exchange Show and the Super Six podcast. I'm joined by Steve K. I'm joined by Russ Williams. I'm joined by Kevin Parker, Jack Talbot, and Farrell Curlin. How is everyone? There he is. Very
good.
Very good.
No,
All right.
Farrell, I know you're trying to get away this week, mate, but you stay where you are.
No. You know what? I've heard rumours that Farrell, you're coming on to give Man United fans stick, and I can't believe it. I cannot believe you are trying to come on and give Man United fans stick. It can't be true. Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, I'd have definitely come in with like tail in between my legs, but I think that draw with Southampton has saved my skin maybe ever so slightly. Just about.
We've got plenty to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about who is going to be missing out in the top four and potentially going for the top six. I know, Jack, you want top four, but top six you'll be happy with still, yeah?
We'll be happy with any European competition. We'll be delighted with Europa, over the moon with Champions League.
There we go. Some humility in this room today. So we're going to start off with you, Jack. But I've got a big question. Were VAR even at the ground on the weekend? Because you're going to have to explain to me how Nick Pope was still managed to play a whole game, how that wasn't a penalty. Like, please break it down for anyone who's sane.
Yeah, even as a biased Newcastle fan, I thought that was a red card and a penalty, as I know what he's done there. He's lost his head again following the incident before the League Cup, and he's done it again. And obviously, it just opens up the conversation again about VAR. But I feel maybe it's just nice for a bit of luck to come our way. We don't often get, well, maybe every club feels that way. Every club's fan feels that. We don't often get those decisions going our way. And it was a bit of luck, a bit of rub of the green, and we will take it. But yeah, he was very lucky to stay on the pitch, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Miguel Almiron and Isaac back in the squad, scoring a goal there. Happy to see him get on the score sheet on the weekend.
Isaac, 100%. We're a bit worried about, well, he hasn't been bad, but he's been very much in and out of the side. But the performance in general, not just the goal, was tremendous. He was, I reckon, the best player on the pitch. Almiron, I sort of spoke last week's show about how we've been sort of relying on him, and he had that dip in form, and they put him on the bench, and he came on, and he was electric. And he scored a very similar goal to what he was doing last year, which is sort of doing the overlap on the right-hand side and cutting in. And because I thought that might have gone Wolves' way, actually, towards the end. It was starting to go that way. I thought it wasn't our day. But as soon as Almiron came on, he just runs, doesn't he? I think that's his instruction. Just run at them. Just carry on running. Just run and don't stop. And that's what he did. And absolutely delighted that he got it. And I think that a lot of fans are endeared by him. He's a very happy chap. And the way he just approaches games, and he's just a traction engine all the time. So delighted for Miggy, and obviously very happy because we're kind of back on the straight and narrow. Maybe we've got Nottingham Forest next, so it could be a good run from here on in.
Yeah, definitely. You need that win after a couple of draws and a couple of losses on the trot. So it's good to get back to winning ways. Russ, it's nice to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Happy to see Tottenham get on back to winning ways, but not just Tottenham, Son and Kane on the score sheet as well.
Yeah. Nottingham Forest, though, the caveat is we're absolutely awful. I mean, simply dreadful. And they scored a goal, and they could have had three, which is an indication of how poor Tottenham are, particularly in the centre of defence. I was quite fearful, I've got to admit, on Saturday at the game, because I think and Forest must have been hoping that they could keep the crowd quiet, get an early goal, which they didn't even remotely look like doing, because I think it would have been a bit toxic then, because, Tottenham is, as all football fans know, a bit of a basket case football club at the moment, because we've got an elite manager, in inverted commas, who almost certainly isn't going to be there. We've got owners that a lot of the fan base think should go. A lot of the fan base think they shouldn't go, they should stay. So to get the 3 points is really good. We've got Southampton away, at St Mary's at the weekend. I think that's going to be a difficult game. But to see Harry get a couple of goals and actually score his first penalty since the World Cup, and that miss against Hugo Lloris was really good. And Son, he didn't have a brilliant game, but it was slightly better than he has been in a lot of them this season. He scored, but the concern was at the back, we could easily have conceded a penalty. And Fraser Forster made an outstanding save from a header from Forest back end of the game. And who knows what would have happened. But the fans, maybe they went away happy, but there's an awful lot of problems at Spurs that have got to be sorted out. And unfortunately, those problems, as I see it, the sort of Conte, Levy power struggle, however, sort of under the water level that is affecting, I think, quite a lot of the performance on the pitch. Which is
Does it annoy you, Russ? Does it annoy you, Russ, that Levy just never comes out, never says anything, stays behind the scenes, doesn't seem to, you've had a lot of problems with Conte, the way things are. You've had a lot of problems with players, what they've been saying, the Ricardo's thing. There's a lot of things wrong behind the scene, but Levy just seems to just let it go, get on with it. He doesn't seem to back the players. He gets Conte in, who seems the right manager, but with Levy in charge at the wrong club. Does it wind Tottenham fans up that he's just so anonymous when the problem seems to happening?
I think a significant amount of them are wound up by that. Whenever Daniel Levy speaks, it's in a very sanitised way. The club's press and PR department sorted out. He's a very skilled communicator, and word is, and I don't know him very well at all, that he's extremely engaging as an individual. He's extremely good company, but once you discuss money with him, the word is that you get the 18-yard stare, the 18-yard box stare, as I like to call it, and he's a completely different animal. I think he thinks that him and the board and the owners of the club, their job was to deliver the stadium. Their job is to deliver a good standard of football that Tottenham fans would like to watch. Whether they've done that, the jury for me is certainly out. But you can't complain that they haven't spent money. Under Conte, £235.8 million has been spent by Conte during his reign. Now, that's an awful lot of money for a club that for the best part of the last year or since the stadium opened have been about £1 billion in debt. £1 billion.
Jeez.
So, that stadium cost a lot of money. And now they diversify, of course. And, of course, he's very keen to talk about F1 and go-karting and Beyonce and gigs. And maybe it's the way forward at top-level football clubs that they become entertainment hubs. But for me, I want to see a football club that performs and wins things on the pitch. And I could be wrong. He could be absolutely right. I mean, he's a tremendous businessman. So in answer to your question, it's a rather long answer. He won't come out and say much unless a manager is appointed, a manager is fired, or, he has to talk to the Supporters Trust once a year and talk about the financial performance of the club. And I don't think he'll ever change. I don't think he'd ever pick up the phone and phone 5 Live or Talk Sport. Well, hang on a minute. What you're saying about me isn't true. I need the right to reply. I think he's thick-skinned. He thinks he's doing a great job. He believes absolutely in what he's doing. And I honestly think he feels, Daniel Levy, he doesn't have to answer to anyone.
Yeah, true. Kevin, you've got an owner that's relatively quiet, but they seem to be. Yeah, I know that Man City have got sometimes comes across as a blank check, but from an outsider view, on regards to Tottenham, what have you seen that they're not doing right?
Oh, crikey, I think we've only got an hour, haven't we? Listen, it's a very difficult.
Right again.
Listen, before we were taken over by Sheikh Mansour, and he is very quiet as an owner, but we've got Khaldoon, who's the chairman, who's when he speaks, he's certainly worth listening to, I think. But before the takeover, we'd have given anything to be in the position that Spurs are in now. And sometimes you look at Twitter, and you see Tottenham fans being critical of where the club is and not spending money and not playing attractive football. And yet you've probably got 15 other teams in the Premier League who look at Spurs and think they'd rather be in the position that Spurs are in than the position they're in the Premier League. But I do have some sympathy for them, despite the fact that they've never let us score a single blooming goal at that new stadium of theirs. We've even missed 2 penalties. Every time we go there, we get beat. I do have some sympathy for them, I think, because they've almost got everything going for them, haven't they? They have got an absolutely fantastic stadium, a very solid fan base. I think they've got a very, very good squad. I think there are a couple of players light here and there, but not too many. But somewhere along the line, there is something not quite right about it. I'm not sure what it is, actually, to be honest with you. I don't know whether it is Daniel Levy. I don't know whether there's other things going on behind the scenes. But they always seem to just be on the edge of being a really successful football team, don't they? They got to the Champions League final. And actually, in that Champions League final, they were probably better than Liverpool. I mean, it wasn't the best final in the world, but they were probably better than Liverpool in that Champions League final. And I think most Spurs fans thought, great, we can go. I can see you're smiling. It was never a penalty either, by the way, and that's me trying to be independent. But I think Spurs fans probably looked at that and thought, we can definitely move on from here. The confidence of getting to a Champions League final, moving into a new season. But then, of course, I think Levy did the age-old thing, didn't he? He didn't really give Pochettino at the time the money that Pochettino needed to move that team on. And then, as he's always, I think with Levy, a few players then started to feel uncomfortable because they couldn't get the money that they wanted at Spurs, so they moved on somewhere else. They have had some very good players who appear to have left the football club, not because they were unhappy with the club, not because they were unhappy with the fans. They were quite happy with the manager. But ultimately, when contracts came up for renewal, they were getting offered better money, seriously better money, to move on to other football clubs. I mean, ultimately, I suppose it does come back to Daniel Levy, and you asked about our owners. And of course, Daniel Levy isn't the owner, but, I think he portrays himself in that way. I would dread to think that somebody like Daniel Levy was in that position at my football club. It would absolutely drive me crazy. Yeah. And he can only be, for me, what's stopping Tottenham Hotspur being quite a successful football club.
Yeah, I agree. Farrell, are you going to be fighting it out with Tottenham for that false spot after your 1-0 loss to Bournemouth? How do you go from 7-0, 7 goals, 7 heaven, to losing 1-0 to bottom of the league?
I've been trying to work this out over the last few days, and I'm still struggling. I mean, we get in a habit online, don't we? We get sort of caught up in the one, after the 7-0, I was like, oh yeah, Liverpool, guaranteed to get the top 4. I'm still confident we'll get top 4, by the way, despite that defeat. I mean, ultimately, it all really comes down to Liverpool's away form. I think Klopp's already discussed it in one of his pressers. He's gone, he's mentioned obviously our home form, Liverpool in the top 4 quite comfortably. Our away form, we're nowhere near Europe. I think we have to sort of look at sort of the bigger context of that. We've still got 13 points from an available 18 since the 3-0 defeat at the Molineux. I think, it's not terrible. I think that's the important thing to focus on. But the glaring issue, nonetheless, is the away record. I've actually looked at sort of some of the games that Liverpool have lost and throwing away points on the road, and there seems to be a sort of recurring theme there in terms of selection. I think we've tried it out earlier in the season where Klopp thought it was mainly a system thing. Initially, he was experimenting with different formations and whatnot, and then quickly established actually, no, the 4-2-3 is perfectly fine. It's who you're selecting. And often, anytime he deviates from a midfield three that contains Henderson, Fabinho, and ideally one of Bajcetic or Harvey Elliott, we tend to throw away points. For instance, losing midfield against Wolves, Bajcetic, Kite, and Thiago. Brentford, Elliott, Fabinho, and Thiago. Forest played a weird sort of, not quite a flat four, but had Jones, Fabinho, and then Carvalho and Elliott as your wide men. Basically, any time we deviate from two senior experienced midfielders, specifically Fabinho and Henderson, and then you can interchange either way with Elliott or Bajcetic, we just drop points. So for me, I think it's as much about selection, but I think critically for Liverpool, if you can sort out that sort of dodgy away form, I think Liverpool do comfortably get top four. But I think my main concern at the minute is we don't look any closer to solving that issue. For me, the obvious way to go is selection, but I presume it will boil down to factors beyond that.
Russ, Farrell's confident that Liverpool are going to get top four. Tottenham are currently sitting in that fourth spot.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Tottenham can hold on to that position? Sorry, what was that?
I think it's unlikely because I think it's unlikely that Tottenham will four. After their performance in the Champions, going out with such a whimper to AC Milan, from a playing point of view, a lot of the fans, I think, would probably say, "What's the point being in the league? Because it'll happen again." Spurs, as it stands at the moment, are never going to win the Champions. I think in the Premier League who could get fourth spot, and I include Newcastle in that. They're the ones I'm worried about. Liverpool, they could do, but really, I don't think they will. Actually, my own prediction is I think Liverpool and Spurs will be in the Europa League next season.
Wow!
And I think the problem is we're not playing very well. The problem at Spurs is a lot of the players are simply not good enough to play at that elite level. I don't buy in to what my learned Manchester City friend said, that we've got a really good squad. We haven't. We got one full of holes, full of signings that really have not worked out and have been badly researched. The due diligence over the last few years has been pretty bad. And I don't think you can expect to perform at the elite level of the Premier League with all those problems and a manager who's definitely going to go. And so for all those reasons, and probably a few more that I can't think of right now, I don't think that Tottenham will make the top four. I personally would love them to do it. But if you look at the fixtures, I know where the banana skins are going to come and where they're not going to get any points. And I think most Tottenham fans would probably go, yeah, I fear you could be right.
The thing is, though, Kears, as well, Manchester United are not playing the weekend, right? They're currently sitting in third. They've got 50 points, right? Tottenham are playing. They're playing Southampton. They should beat Southampton. If they win that game, they go third.
Yeah, but Southampton are fighting for their lives, Steve.
Yeah,
And I could see that game as a draw, personally. I'd love Spurs to win, of course. But United are playing better football. They've got more momentum, and they've got a manager who's in form as well as his players, apart from that blip against Liverpool. I mean, the way they came back against Betis, very impressive. Yesterday, Casemiro getting sent off. He's out. He's going to be out for 4 games. Big loss for them. Anything could happen. But, if teams are playing as they're playing right now, showing the form like Newcastle yesterday were terrific in a difficult game, I think it's going to be very hard for Tottenham to finish in the top 4, which doesn't suit Daniel Levy's financial plan. So there's another problem. But, I could be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah. Phil, quickly back to you. How do you speak of a midfield that is obviously needs a lot of work in the summer? Henderson is not getting any younger. Milner still strapping him up to get him on. I
think he stayed in Bournemouth, because that's where they all go to retire, didn't it? So I think Milner and Henderson and people like that, I think they took it a bit too literally that when they went to Bournemouth, they just stayed there and didn't retire for the rest of the time.
Playing in slippers. How did Liverpool seriously have the pull to draw in players like Jude Bellingham to bring their standards up in midfield when you've got Man City over there that also will be looking at him as well? Liverpool are in a bit of trouble if they're looking to strengthen their midfield and they don't get Champions League next season.
Well, to talk about Bellingham first, the first thing to note, of course, is that money beyond the asking price that Dortmund are going to set isn't going to be the main factor. We know the player isn't going to be motivated solely by money. Now, of course, that's just one part of the equation. You look at sort of the current situation with Madrid, with Man City. You can go objectively and you can say you've got more of a sort of complete sort of project there. I think the thing is I don't buy into the fact that this is an complete end of an era. For Klopp and Liverpool, I think obviously that we need heavy investment in the summer. The midfield being a case in point. Equally, I think you can make arguments for the back line to a certain degree. So with Bellingham, if we know that, assuming Liverpool can pay the asking price and assuming that the player is going to be motivated by whichever team is able to offer the best project, i.e. helping with this personal development, Liverpool stand a really good chance. You've still got arguably one of the top two managers in world football, not on current form, admittedly. I think that can be said. But you look at, I think for me, the thing that's sort of encouraging me somewhat is the idea that if you're looking at a player who cares so obviously, his family, all united around that idea of personal development. If you're thinking about that, you're looking at, okay, which team is going to get you the most minutes on the pitch? And now, obviously, with City, I don't know what's currently happening with City's midfield. I know there's been lots of rumours about Silva and whatnot. So I don't know in terms of what positions are going to open up there. But you look at, if you compare Liverpool, City and Madrid right now, which team is going to be able to give that player the most minutes from the off? It's probably going to be Liverpool on paper. Regardless of whether they're in top four or not. So it just comes down to whether the player is motivated by which team is able to give him Champions League football instantly, or whether he sees the long-term, not even the long-term project at Liverpool. I think, with some heavy investment in the summer, Liverpool are easily back in top four, even if they don't make it this year. Mm-hmm. So I'm not unconfident when it comes to Bellingham. And I think we have to remember this is still, Liverpool, we're talking almost like Liverpool haven't been in the Champions League for the last 3 years. Yes, we've had an appalling season compared to the highs of the prior campaign in which we came within 2 games of winning a quadruple. I think any player will look at that and go, look, this is still more or less the same team that, went to 3 Champions League finals, won a league title. You still have the same manager. You're not starting off with the same building blocks as you had in 2015. You look at the squad Liverpool had then and think, my God, how's the manager going to turn this around? You've got a better base to work off. The question, of course, is how much money Liverpool are going to have to invest in the summer. Because if you think Bellingham, you've heard numbers like £130 million have been thrown out. And then you think, well, Liverpool need more than just 1 quality midfielder, as minimum 2, ideally 3. Plus, whether you want a centre half on top of that. So you're easily thinking it's going to have to be the 200 million mark. And then you're getting into conversations around, well, do Liverpool even have 200 million, even if they get Champions League football? Do we need to work out some solutions in terms of the revolving credit facility we're using to pay off the revamp to the stadium and that kind of thing? So I'm still confident Liverpool can get Bellingham. Of course, I'll be more confident if we're in the Champions League. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it'd be a case of if we fail to get top 4 football, we're completely out of the equation for Bellingham.
All right. I will go to you in a second, Kevin, on this one, because obviously it's involving your team. But Jack, from an outsider view, if you was Jude Bellingham, who would you pick?
Who's interested? So I've heard Chelsea, PSG, Real Madrid, Man City, Liverpool, all interested. I don't think you'd want to go Chelsea because of what they're like at the moment. Mm-hmm. Real Madrid are obviously Real Madrid, but they do have a lot of players in midfield quite young talent there already, but it's obviously Real Madrid. I understand as well the prospect of working under Jurgen Klopp, who I think is one of the best managers in the world. And the fact is, although this season for Liverpool's been a bit poor, they were runners-up last season in the Premier League, Champions League, and they won 2 domestic cups, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel would be something, and then this is Man City as well, and I mean that's also possible too. I'm working under Pep Guardiola, so it sort of depends really. But again, it's a lot of is Bernardo Silva leaving, Gundogan leaving Man City. That still needs to be realised. But it just seems to me that there's been so much in the media around Liverpool and Bellingham, and it's been going ever since last year. And as a player, you want to feel wanted. And I just feel those links, there must be something there. There's stuff about his father speaking to Liverpool, and it just seems to be leaning towards that way. And a lot of the reports, mostly from Spain, seem to be of Real Madrid putting stuff out sort of relatively desperately to try and influence something. I'm quite fond of Liverpool, so I'd like to see him go there. I think in particular, I'm fond of Jurgen Klopp, really. And I feel perhaps if it was between City and Liverpool, maybe the appeal of Liverpool would be the fact that he would be their star player and the team would be built around them.
Very interesting. Kevin, is Jude Bellingham the magic pace in that midfield, or do you not need him?
No, listen, I think Jude Bellingham is an excellent footballer, and I don't think there's any top team in Europe that wouldn't want Jude Bellingham to be part of their squad. And listen, we all listen to the rumours, and sometimes you can get distracted by them. There does seem to be a suggestion that he's leaning towards Liverpool rather than City. And listen, that's fair enough. If that's a decision that he wants to make, I don't think that weakens us. It strengthens it strengthens Liverpool, that's for sure. But it doesn't weaken us. And if that's a choice he wants, it would be surprising for me that if he signed for a club who weren't going to play in the Champions League. He's currently at Dortmund, and they're playing in the Champions League every season. The one thing they can't do in that German league is they can't win the German league because of the dominance that Bayern have in terms of, they just get all the best players, don't they? The teams in England are accused of doing things in terms of sweeping up and getting the best players from around the world, but Germany just get the best players. Bayern Munich just get the best players in Germany and just sweep them all up, don't they? So I think that's the reason he wants out of Germany. He wants to win trophies, and I think the reality is, if he wants to win trophies, then Liverpool might be a choice for him. The reality is, Liverpool have won 1 Premier League in 34 years. Is that what he wants? They have got to a few Champions League finals. Even City got to a Champions League final 2 seasons ago. We've won 4 Premier Leagues out of 5. It might be 4 out of 6, or it might be 5 out of 6 at the end of this season. But I think he's a very, very good player. Would I take him in the City squad? I absolutely would. I think one of the advantages we might have is that some of the players that we're going to move on in the summer, it would appear, maybe Bernardo Silva, maybe Laporte, they're going to go for good money. We're probably going to get 120, 130 million pounds for those 2 players. So that puts us in a very, very strong position. And if it's not Bellingham, as Pep has shown before, there'll be another player out there that will go and look. We'll link with McAllister from Brighton, slightly different player. In my view, McAllister is not as good a player as Bellingham. He's not. But there might be another player out there, I do tend to think that if you read in the media, the suggestion is that he might go to Liverpool, and the reality is, if that's what he wants to do, fine, good luck. And we move on. Gone are the days when I used to, we used to be linked with lots of players, and I used to think, oh, we've lost out to him. I look at some of the players that we've lost out to, particularly the players that we've lost out to that have gone to Manchester United, like Harry Maguire and a few others, Jadon Sancho and a few of those other players, Fred. that were linked with City, and we ended up not getting them. Ultimately, we move on. We find somebody as good or somebody better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. Sometimes your plan B is better than your plan A. Russ, where would you like to see Jude Bellingham next season if he was to come to one of the Premier League teams? Man City,
Tottenham
Liverpool?
Hotspur, of course, Spurs. But I mean, there's no chance of that.
Never
I mean,
know.
you know, if you said to Daniel, Jude Bellingham, it's going to cost you 180 million euros. He spit his tea out, I think. I have a feeling that it will be Liverpool or Real Madrid. That's my gut feeling. I totally buy into everything about the case being made for Liverpool. And I think it is about game time. He won't get as much game time at City, I don't think. And, you know, under Jurgen Klopp, I'm a big fan of Jurgen Klopp as well. I think he's been tremendous, not only for Liverpool, but for our game. And he's upped the standard a bit over the last few seasons. This is a little blip, I think, for Liverpool. And maybe he's a big part, Bellingham, in the jigsaw, this so-called rebuild that isn't happening according to Klopp, but everyone seems to think that it is going to be absolutely pivotal. So English club, I would have thought Liverpool, but watch out, Real Madrid as well.
Yeah, because they don't give up easily. Kevin, Manchester City got a 1-0 victory. Haaland getting the penalty to win the game. On paper, many would have thought that should have been an easy 3 points against Palace, but Palace is actually a team that make you work hard for the 3 points when you do get them. So it's a hard fought out victory there.
Yeah, listen, I think recently, you know, they've drawn at home to Newcastle, to United. I think it didn't surprise me the way that they set up, to be honest with you. It was always going to be a case of them setting up and trying to soak up the pressure. And I thought Crystal Palace kept their shape very, very well. They took advantage of every opportunity for the ball to be dead. I think I read one statistic that said that every time there was a goal kick or a throw-in or a corner for Crystal Palace, that the average time that the ball was out of play or the ball was dead in those circumstances, the average time was 47 seconds. So that's quite a lot of time, to be honest with you. But I thought Crystal Palace did all right. You know, to be fair, if I was a Palace fan, I'd probably be bitterly disappointed that we ended up losing that game because they sort of stuck to the game plan. Ultimately, it's a result that keeps us in, within that 5 point distance of Arsenal. It didn't surprise me at all. We had this conversation last week. It didn't surprise me at all that they went to Palace on Sunday and won. They're in a very rich vein of form since we beat them. They've won 5 on the run now, I think. The reality is they only need to draw one of their next games and we're back in it, aren't we? You know, if that gap drops down to 3 points, we've got to play them at the Etihad. And that's when it starts to get interesting and a little bit tasty. They got an advantage this weekend, of course, interestingly. Arsenal play Crystal Palace at home this weekend, but we're playing in the FA Cup. So there is an opportunity for Arsenal to go 8 points clear. I don't think that 8 point thing has a massive impact on City as a squad.
I was going to say there's people out there that say that will have a psychological advantage to Arsenal, but City have been there before.
Yeah, I don't think that matters to City, to be honest with you. Although, you know, our next Premier League game after the FA Cup is at home to Liverpool, so that'll be a biggie.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. Steve, Arsenal 3-0 victory away from home to Fulham. There was a few murmurs that this would be a difficult game. Fulham in good form, still pushing for that top 6 spot, but Arsenal absolutely cruised to victory. 3-0, all in the first half.
Well, mate, I must admit, I mean, unlike City nearly making a pig's ear of it on on the weekend, Arsenal absolutely scintillating. We absolutely just blew Fulham away. That first half performance was probably performances I've seen from anybody this season. Trossard was incredible. 10 out of 10 first half performance. We got 3 assists. Saliba, Xhaka, absolutely outstanding. And I mean, and I think there is going. I think a little bit different. I think the 8 points gap is going to tell if we go 8 points clear, because, as I said last week, this is a different Arsenal. I've seen a lot of Arsenal sides over the last 10, 15 years. We've been in the doldrums, and this ain't them. This is a new breed. They got no fear. They can go there and beat anybody. I'll tell you the way I look at it. You can never put Man City out of it because they've been there, done it, got the C-shirt. They've got some incredible players and an incredible bench. But I looked at the game against City the weekend, and then I looked at we got Palace coming up the following weekend, and I thought, I mean, touch wood, I thought we're going to blow Palace away. That's what I thought. I thought we could score 4 or 5 against Palace.
A bit like you did with Bournemouth.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, things can change, but I thought, I have to say, I thought Palace were awful. I think they did the...
Listen, I don't think they were a particularly entertaining football team, but, they had a specific... And listen, football since the World Cup has been a little bit odd, hasn't it? We don't know. And listen, as I've already said, and I've said it last week, I think Arsenal are playing really, really well, fantastically well. If I'm a neutral, I'm thinking that Arsenal are going to go on and win the Premier League. I'm not a neutral. I'm a City fan, and I think that we got it within us to do it. But for us to do that, we're going to have to rely on Arsenal slipping up somewhere. Yeah. And that's the downside. But listen, within the space of 6 days, Liverpool beat Manchester United, who are, one of the top 3-4 teams in the country at the moment. They beat them 7-0. And then they went to Bournemouth, who I think at the time were possibly bottom of the league, and they lost 1-0. So whilst I hear what you're saying about Crystal Palace going to the Emirates and you're going to blow them out of the water, and you might do, I think it proves that where you've got 10, 11, 12 games to go, both of us, to think that all those 12 games are going to go exactly
they won't.
Between now and the end of the season.
No.
I think something always happens. Always happens. And that might well be actually in your favour. The difference is if it's not in your favour, and if you just draw 1 and we win, and then we play you at home, our goal difference is still better than yours. Suddenly the impetus is with us. So
I think you get a feeling as a fan, don't you? I think you just get feelings when you've watched your club for so long, and you get a feeling. I mean, one of the things that Jesus come back and looked like he ain't been away. That was the most incredible 15 minutes performance I've ever seen from someone who's been out for 4 months. I mean, Kevin, you must know what this guy's like. We haven't seen him.
We talked about him last week.
We haven't seen him injured and coming back. Normally, you take a little while to get in. You have to move into the game. He came in like when he started at the beginning of the season when we first see him.
I mean, he's not that sort of player. He's straight at it, isn't he?
Unreal. So now we've got him back. Our bench against Fulham the weekend was quite impressive. And now our medical table is clean. There's nobody. We haven't got no injuries apart from Eddie Nketiah, who I feel was back the weekend. So we're going into the Palace game. We're going in 5 points clear. We've got a chance to go 8, and you're thinking everything's set up. But I do agree. You could draw a game, lose a game. You've got some difficult fixtures come up, but I don't think Arsenal could be in a better position right now to go on and win the title than they could be. If you had to say what positions you want to be in, you would say you have your best team out, full beam, be flying, won every game since like the little mini blip, 5 games on the spin. You couldn't ask for more.
You've got to play a Chelsea team who are coming back into form. You've got to go to Anfield. You've got to go to Newcastle.
More tests. More tests.
I promise you, only because I've been there, I promise you, these next 12 games are going to be very, very tough. And whilst I understand their excitement, I was a little bit surprised with the Arsenal fans singing at Craven Cottage, "We're going to win the league." I Well, they were singing it loud and proud. And I remember in 2014 when we went to Anfield and lost 3-2, and the Liverpool fans singing, "We're going to win the league." That all changed very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think, the one thing I would say is, seriously, if we were in your position, if we were 5 points clear, even with our experience would tell me it's still going to be very, very tough, and I wouldn't be getting too carried away.
One thing
That's
about
the
me,
only thing I would say.
one thing people will know as an Arsenal, I'd never get carried away. I'll be like the last 2 games, and I'll be going, yeah, well, you never know. We could be 5 points clear, with 2 games to go. But I will still be saying, yeah, well, let's get a point in this one. Other fans will be going to me, Steve, what's the matter with you? You've won it. I'm in your camp, Kev. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
I've seen
This
it.
is the problem,
I've been
isn't
there,
it?
done it, seen it. I've seen Arsenal fans fall apart. I've seen them, gain leads. I've seen them fall leads. So yeah, I'm no matter with you.
Listen, I hope from your point of view, like I say, if I take away the fact I'm a City fan, it'd be great for you to have the excitement of doing that. But from a City perspective, Pep was right yesterday. Actually, Pep did a press conference maybe after the Palace game where they were saying, well, City have got the experience, and Pep said, well, yeah, but lots of teams who win the league have the experience of it. It doesn't mean that they go on and win it.
Right, yeah.
So we'll see how it falls. I just think that because that's the way it is. I heard a stat this morning, and I know Arsenal are a very different team. Last season, apparently, Arsenal lost 5 of their last 10 Premier League games when they were pushing for a Champions League place. And
not with this team, though. Not with this team.
They were in good form. They were in good form. 5 out of 10. When they had a Champions League place almost nailed on. Yeah. And now people are thinking they've got the Premier League almost nailed on.
Yeah, but a totally different team now.
I think the difference in Arsenal's team last season, I don't feel like it was a case of what many people thought, where they claimed that Arsenal bottled it. I don't think it was that situation. I think it was more of a squad depth situation. They lost Thomas Partey, who was a massively influential player with them last season, and they lost Kieran Tierney as well. And their backup left back was Nuno Tavares, who's currently out on loan in France. Not to the level of Kieran Tierney, and Kieran Tierney is now our backup left back. So that says where the difference in our squad this season. What I would say about the up and coming games is exactly what Kevin said. Liverpool were fighting for 4th spot, and no one wants to face a Liverpool team that are hungry like that. Chelsea have just found a bit of form. Newcastle are just starting to get all their players back. So it is going to be tough. There are going to be some ups and downs. It's just that at the moment, Arsenal haven't had many downs. And long may that continue. Russ, I know you seem a bit down. There is still plenty to go this season. What do you think that Tottenham need in the summer? Who would you get rid of?
They need a football enema, in my opinion. There's a lot of players who are not good enough. I could sit and reel out the names. I don't need to. Tottenham fans know where the big holes in the squad are. The issue in the summer is going to be who's going to be the manager, by the look of it, because it does seem, and I'm a supporter of Conte, although some of the tactics are tepid and rather turgid. If you like watching horseshoe tactics, and you'll enjoy watching Spurs. He can't, not play 3 at the back. He won't ever have a 4, It's just not been great to watch. And something has happened between him and Daniel Levy, maybe him and the players. Richarlison coming out the other day and saying what he said, even though Conte sort of batted on his side in the press conference the following day, you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be more than Richarlison in that dressing room. We've got gripes. And it's all about who the new manager is going to be. And I was reading one newspaper just before we came on. Marco Silva is the red-hot favourite to take over at Spurs if Conte goes. Well, that's a Pochettino Mark II. That is a man who wouldn't spend any money and would play within Spurs and ENIC's business model. I'm not sure. It's a circle that just forever goes round.
I don't know.
Something's got to give, and if Conte goes, I do think, in a way, it's damning on the owners that they have an elite manager. Although, is it Conte of, 2016 when he turned up at Chelsea or whenever it was? A bit like when we got Mourinho. It wasn't the Mourinho of 2004. I mean, he was an elite manager then. And they've made some shocking decisions. And you get the feeling that there could be another one on the way in the summer. But let's wait and see. I don't think Pochettino will come back. I'll put my head above the parapet for that. And let's be honest, how many people marry their ex-husband or ex-wife? Hardly any.
For good reason.
Exactly.
For good reason.
Would you like it to be?
Who I would?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's 3 names who should be in the frame, any one of which I would be happy with. Vincent Kompany isn't going to happen, but he would be a bloke to take a big club, having all that experience of being a winner at your place and playing with such distinction. But boy, he's been good at Burnley. And I know Burnley's Burnley, but I think he's going to be some manager in the future. The other one that I think Tottenham will look at, and I'd be quite happy if he came, Thomas Frank from Brentford.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Luis Enrique, former Spain and Barcelona
It's not
manager.
a bad shortlist there.
Yeah, that would be my shortlist. But of course, it won't be Daniel's, I don't think. But you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But I mean, the point is, Conte is going to go unless there's some, miracle happens, because he's not committed. And you can see that when he's in the technical area. You can hear it in his press conferences. He's had a lot of personal difficulties this year. He's not been well. And maybe he's just not the fit that we hoped he would be for Spurs. But I think he could have been if he had been given one transfer window ago some of the players that he wanted. I mean, when you hear a manager saying, oh, that's a club signing, not mine. And he said that about Jed Spence, who's doing fantastic at Rennes. And who else did he say that about? Arnaud Danjuma. Well, it's a club signing, not mine. I mean, what does that do for the dressing room?
Yeah.
What signal does it send out? You'd never hear Pep or Jurgen Klopp or Eric Ten Hag, who incidentally, I understand, was interviewed a few seasons ago for the job at Spurs, and they felt that perhaps he wasn't quite up to the job. Really? It's incredulous to me. But anyway, there you go.
Who was brought in? The players you brought in last summer? Because I saw something online about I think it's 8 players you brought last summer, and not one of them have done well so far. And Jed Spencer, he came in from. It wasn't for Middlesbrough. He came from Middlesbrough. Relatively cheap, though. And I think he had about 2 seconds of football, and he's been shipped off to Ligue 1. But the players like Richarlison, Pulisic, are they club buys or were they from Conte?
I think Perisic, because of the Inter Milan connection, was certainly a Conte, and Paratici. And this is the other problem. Sorry to harp on about this for Spurs. You've got Paratici, the director of football, who's under severe investigation for all sorts of things. It could be banned if he's found guilty. So Tottenham would have a problem there. You had Kulusevski, who came in from Juve on loan, and Bentancur, who I do think has been a success, but he's injured now and he's going to be out until November. And he has made a real difference for us. Romero came in. I mean, he's a tremendous footballer, but he's a hothead. I mean, he's always got a red card in him.
I think he's a very, very good footballer.
He's good.
Yeah, he is. He's a World Cup winner.
It surprises me that there's. I don't know who it would be. It surprised me that there's somebody at Spurs just haven't managed to curtail that over aggressiveness that he's got. But as a footballer, I think he's very, very good.
Yeah, and he's the only central defender that we've got, really. Eric Dyer now past his best, I'm afraid. Squad player. Ben Davis, exactly the same. Clement Longley, it's not going to work out. He's a lone player. And then you've got dear old Davinson Sanchez, and this is Conte, who likes to play 3 at the back, 3 top quality centre-backs and 2 brilliant wing-backs, who can tuck in as a 5. Well, Pedro Porro's come. He's promising, but Sessegnon, no, that was 20 million or whatever it was, another player. So in answer to your question, there are an awful lot of players who we've signed over the last year, 2 years, who for some reason are not working out. And I think in some cases, it purely is because they've run out of talent. In other words, for the level that we expect as Spurs fans, and I presume the club want us to play, exciting, fast-flowing football, a bit like under Pochettino in the early years, these players are not good enough, a lot of them. And that is where the problem is at Spurs. The major problem, the due diligence and the transfer policy. Not, and I'll say it again, not for the amount of money that the club have spent. They've spent the money badly.
I think the defence is the problem, isn't it? I think the defence is the problem.
Huge.
I think that goes right to the goalkeeper as well. Laurie's been a great servant, been fantastic for Spurs, but looks like his time's coming to an end. Father Time's just catching up on him. Forest, he's obviously not going to be their number one. They need a goalkeeper. They need to get one in next season without any shot. They need an experienced older head to play next to Romero, who can sort of basically calm him down and bring out.
I think
Harry Maguire's
you're right.
available.
You're right. We need a goalkeeper, 2 top quality centre backs, certainly a wing back, creative midfielder. And, my mates and I, we say that if we signed James Maddison, he'd just be on the bench. Conte wouldn't play him. He doesn't like that sort of creative player.
Right player.
And we need a striker. But, then there's Harry Kane, isn't there? Linked with Man City. I don't think you get a chance to go there. But if Marco Silva came in, with respect to Marco, is that going to make Harry Kane go,
no,
I'm going to stay at Spurs for the rest of my career? It's not. If Luis Enrique came in, it might do.
Speaking of goalkeepers, would you take, I think he's good enough personally, would you take Kevin Kelleher?
Would I take?
Would you take Kevin Kelleher, Liverpool's second choice goalkeeper? He's a young lad. He's a good goalkeeper. No, seriously, he's a very good goalkeeper. He's very good.
Won the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
He's the Carabao Cup keeper, wasn't he?
He's a trophy winner. Get him in.
I'm telling you, he's a very good. I've seen him. Top 6 goalkeeper.
Yeah, I've seen him play a few times for Liverpool, particularly in Europe, and
very assured.
Yes, he is. And incidentally, Steve, Kevin Hitchcock is a friend of mine, former Chelsea goalkeeper. Your number 2, Mr. Turner. Kevin trained him at New England Revolution in America, where you signed him from.
Okay.
And speaks really highly of him, Kevin.
He's good. He just needs time.
He is good. Yeah. Just one other name, Joseph Sarr. If Tottenham went and got him, they'd get him.
Oh, yes. There we go. That's a good signing. Wolves goalkeeper.
Talking of Sarr, Papemate Sarr, superstar of the future. And he's a Tottenham player.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Young lad. And boy, I love watching him play. Fantastic. But, he's got to play for a coach who believes in him and gives him some time on the pitch. Simple as that.
Very true.
Aren't you all glad you don't support Spurs?
Oh yeah. 100%. Jack, do Newcastle get that Champions League spot? Do they finish just outside and get that Europa League spot?
I think last podcast was on last Monday. I said we'll be 5th. Now I'm convinced we're going to get 4th. No, I'm joking there. I'm not. I honestly don't know. I think we've got a good run in. I think I'll probably have a firmer idea.
There you are.
Forest next. Sorry. Yeah.
No, mate. Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, and Man United after that. So if we get maybe a win over Man United, then it's very possible. We're still lacking central midfield a little bit. We've got Dan Burn as our left back, which surprises me so much, just thinking about the fact how well we've done. And we've got Dan Burn as our regular left back. It's extraordinary when you think about it. So I feel probably, I don't know, like 4.5, is that supposition? It'll be 4th or 5th. I'm kind of really sitting on the fence in this one.
Do you have a 7-foot left back? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, ask Arsenal. We've got like a 6'4" right back in Ben White. He's not short.
True, very true.
Maybe it's a new thing they're doing, putting these really lanky central defenders up on the wing there. I'm not sure. But
Tactic in it.
Dan Burn, 6'7". It's not really, it doesn't really strike you as like a rapid wing back, does it? And he hasn't had the best displays recently. Probably just haven't got enough quality to get to fourth spot. But I feel the reason I didn't want to say that because I feel almost bad because they've done so well. They've done so well. They've done really well, and I don't want to let them down in the public forum. But I feel probably, realistically, they just probably will just miss out this time. It'll still be a wonderful season, I'm sure of it.
Of course.
I do wonder. Let's not bring it on something else. But Man United and that loss. I know they beat Betis after, but they're missing Casemiro now. And I just wonder if that massive loss to Liverpool. And I've always said, and I think it was mentioned here before, like in the last one, does this seem a bit susceptible? Like even when they're getting them wins against like Leeds and stuff, they just sort of got it at the last 10 minutes. And I just think, could they even peel away? Perhaps because there is a fair amount of a way to go, really. And missing Casemiro, so they'll have McSauce and Fred back there. And I don't think So we'll see, I suppose.
And what do you think you need if you was to get that full spot? What positions do you need to strengthen?
Probably a striker, someone like 21 years old, will come in for like 15 million. We need a quality central midfielder who can play as a 6. I'd love Declan Rice. I can't see that happening. I think there's so many other teams after. The trouble is, every other bloody team is after a central midfielder, a top quality central midfielder. It'd be hard to get him. But I feel that would be number one. I feel as good as service Dan Burn's done on the left wing, and as unique as it's been, and it has been a unique and rewarding experience seeing him on that left flank, it's probably worth purchasing an actual genuine left-sided left back as well to come in. Central midfielder, left back, and maybe one more striker. I'm just saying that because Wilson's looked really off recently. Ever since November or December, he's looked a little bit off. And then, so another season, another window, we should be well on our way.
Would you take Jonathan David?
Yeah, he's tearing up, isn't he, in Ligue 1? Yeah, 100%.
Good shout from Newcastle.
Yeah, he'd be really, really good. He can play a variety of roles, can't he, across the front, so we like that. But he's doing really, really well. I suspect he'll go somewhere else, though. But yeah, in a heartbeat, I'd take him, 100%, yeah.
Isn't there some link in Ronaldo's contract about him potentially going to Newcastle if they get in the Champions League?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we've been linked to Neymar, we've been linked to Ronaldo.
No, because of the whole Saudi Arabian...
I think
contract.
Fans would get proper arsey about that if that was to happen. We're spirited by the organic growth. We're spirited by the way we've done things. We're not doing, what like Chelsea are doing now kind of thing. We've done it sort of in a way which is very organic, and a lot of fans understand the need, and most people do, to be fair, about squad cohesion and stuff and dressing room presence and how important that is to have every person, And you look at Ronaldo the other day throwing his arms around because he didn't win the Saudi Arabia Cup or whatever it was. And, it's just, no, I wouldn't want Ronaldo.
I do think you are going to need to go big somewhere, though. I know you talk about this organic growth. I think to carry on, I think you're going to need to go big somewhere for two reasons. One, I don't think a 21-year-old striker is going to take you any forward. I think you need someone who's got experience of scoring goals in the Premier League, of scoring goals in Spain. I think bringing in a young player. And secondly, I think if you go big on somebody, a little bit like City did with Yaya Toure, I think once you get that first one in, it does help attract other players. I think they see that Newcastle are committing themselves, and they made some very, very good signings, Newcastle, I think. And I think the way that they played yesterday in the first half, I thought was brilliant. It could have been 3 or 4-0 at half time. But I do think Newcastle do need to have a look at somebody. And I'm not saying it's Ronaldo, but actually, because you talked about maybe Declan Rice, and that might be a step too far for Declan Rice, I think. But I think that's the sort of move you need to try and make.
Yeah, I do agree. Because we're getting these players in, there has to be there have been quite shrewd signings. Kieran Trippier was 12 million, but he was in his 30s when he came. And if we're going to progress, and our owners have talked about winning the Premier League and stuff, there will have to come a point where we are going to have to bring in star names. Not so much to dismantle what's been going on and disrupt anything, but certainly look to bring in players who could. I mean,
if you played in the Champions League next season, let's say you did qualify for the Champions League at the expense of Tottenham Hotspur, why wouldn't Harry Kane go to Newcastle?
Why wouldn't Harry Kane go to Newcastle? Maybe because I don't know. I mean, it's a fair enough question. There is a whole thing about players.
Newcastle.
I don't think he'll ever leave Spurs.
Newcastle have always been connected with, number 9 at Newcastle is all, and it's dropped off a little bit over the years. But to be the number 9 at Newcastle is
and
a
big thing.
If you think of Harry Kane following Alan Shearer at Newcastle, it's a big step, I think. But I don't think Harry Kane would see that as a step down. I think that would be a step forward.
I think Harry Kane, because it just seems if he was to move to Spurs, he'd want almost, because of his age, I think he's 30 in the summer, he'd probably want somewhere like Bayern Munich where a trophy would be almost instant, and maybe with Newcastle would be a bit more down the line. But it's certainly interesting to think about that. I mean, we've just sort of been linked to, James Maddison's one we've been linked to, and that's a sort of big signing I envisioned us making. But you're right, that getting that Champions League spot could open up a lot of doors. And why not Harry Kane? At least try to get him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's talk of Declan Rice. Why not go for a Calvin Phillips? Like you can't get the other one. Take the one that Man City aren't playing.
The fat one. I'm just saying what Pep said. Didn't Pep call him fat?
Right?
He did.
That we called him.
Yeah. Word, but I think he said he was. I think he was 0.1 of a kilo overweight, wasn't he?
Yeah. Not as fat as Casemiro, but quite fat.
It's a valid point, that actually. He is a bit of a fat.
He has got a bit of timber on him, Casemiro, hasn't he? He's not.
He's doing the job. Farrell, are Liverpool going to get that full spot, or are they going to be playing in the Europa League next season? Begging for Jude Bellingham to join them.
Jesus. I'm not admittedly as confident as I was last week.
10 minutes ago.
Neither am I. I'm not as confident as I was last week. I said you get four.
I'm cautious. I by no means I don't think top 4 is guaranteed for Liverpool, and I think a lot of it really hinges on to what extent we can solve. Because I don't think we'll completely solve it, but to what extent we can kind of turn things around with our away form. We know our home form is top 4 quality. We know that absolutely, without question. Can we start getting results on the road? Obviously, April's really going to be the test for that, isn't it? You've got obviously the big names. You've got City, Arsenal, but critically, a lot of those games are on the road, so you're going to know pretty quickly where Liverpool are in terms of their top 4 hopes. If we don't get much in the way of points in April, I don't think top 4 is happening. If we do, then buckle up and hold on to your seat. I think Liverpool will be very much in there. I think I'm similar to Jack. I'm kind of on the fence of this. I think I don't, dependent on what our owners decide to do in the summer. I don't think we'll necessarily have too much trouble getting top targets. I think it'll become a question of quantity. In that case, we might not get a centre half, which I think we probably do need to bring in, given there's been loads of question marks over Joel Matip and Joe Gomez. But I think 2 midfielders minimum, I think is definitely still achievable. Obviously, I prefer the safety net of Champions League and all the glorious finances that come with it. But yeah, on the fence, I'm quietly confident Liverpool get top 4, but I'm not certain about it.
All right. And before we go, Kevin, there's a group of fans that are saying that Man City will be playing into Arsenal's hands because they'll be concentrating on the Champions League. What's your thoughts on that one?
No, listen, I think that's not the way that Pep. Pep very much, and I know he says it all the time. With Pep, it's very much one game at a time. And I think as soon as the Palace game was over, he's concentrating on the Leipzig game tomorrow, which is going to be a very tough game, I think, by the way. I think they're not a bad team. But I would be confident that it's a team we could beat. And then he'll think of the FA Cup. And then after the FA Cup, he'll think of the Premier League game. So we won't be distracted by the Premier League. No more, I don't think, than Arsenal would be distracted by the Europa Cup. So, no, I can't see. Not with the experience that these players have got, I don't think so.
All right. Thank you for everyone who has joined us tonight. Thank you very much, Russ. Thank you very much, Farrell. Thank you very much, Kevin. And thank you very much, Jack. Oh, and of course, Steve. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Farrell, we're going to be seeing Champions League football after next week for Liverpool. I'm not talking about the end of the season. I'm talking about, are they going to beat Real Madrid?
Oh, God. I don't think. I think, you know what? I think we'll scare them at the Bernabeu.
You're going to get splinters sitting on this fence, you know.
I don't think we're going through. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think we're going through. Then again, next week I could be sitting here really pretty. 5-2 over something. We see. Oh no. You've seen it before Barcelona, but I think we don't have the advantage of coming home to Anfield and hoping for a miracle. So I think 5-2 really difficult to overturn at the Bernabeu. So no.
I hope they do it. I don't want Farrell coming on 2 weeks and getting ribbed from everybody.
In tears.
That's why we differ. I don't hope they do it.
All right, thank you for everyone who was.
Nights.
No, it'll be all right. We go easy on him. It's no one's expecting you to come back from 5-2 anyway. Thank you for everyone who has just joined us tonight. If you are new to the show, press that like and subscribe button. If you are regular, press that like button. Thank you for everyone who's joined us tonight. Peace out, people. Stay safe and wash your hands.